What are the goals of today's event?
Well, for our advanced culinary arts students to get some experience with a true chef.
Why do you think it's important for students to be involved in events like this?
It's important if you're going to go into this field to understand what you're getting into, and I think getting into events like this slowly will teach young aspiring cooks what it's really like to cook food for a living. And, you know, it's important if you graduate school and you've never done this and you say, I want to go to culinary school, and then you get there, it can be kind of a rude awakening. So it's good to have people help out in this kind of format, get them ready for that step.
Why did you decide to participate in today's event?
Well, I just thought that today's event was very important for the students to be a part of, and I just think it's wonderful to have Chef Marco here to just show us what he's all about and what he has to offer.
Why did you decide to participate in today's event?
Well, I'm always trying to find something fun and exciting to do that ties education to wellness.
Why do you think it's important for students to be involved in events like this?
Just so they can see what's out there for them, and they can realize that their dreams can come true. And I just think it's important for them to be a part of stuff like this, and it's exciting to watch them be excited about having people like Chef Marco here.
We're trying to teach the kids that the importance of eating seafood. They contain these things, these essential fatty acids that our body needs, especially in a young stage when you're growing up, to develop correctly. And when our body doesn't produce these fatty acids, so where do you get them from? There's flaxseed oil, krill oil, random things like that. But a really good source of it is fish. And a lot of kids are kind of afraid to eat fish, so we're trying to get them more involved in eating it. Today I'm talking to you guys about the importance of eating fish. We're going to talk about fish anatomy. We're going to talk about why it's good for you. We're going to talk about actually butchering fish. And then we're going to talk about cooking fish, all in this short hour. So let's get started. The fish that I'm focusing on today is going to be salmon. In this container, I have a whole Atlantic salmon. This is a farm-raised fish, so this is a pretty much, as far as the world of salmon goes, this is like a medium-sized salmon. Wild king salmon from Alaska, for example, will get to be 25, 30-pound fish. This is about 10 or 12 pounds. Then you got wild, regular like Alaskan wild salmon, or just wild salmon in general, will be 7 to 8 pound fish, so they're slightly smaller than this. So this is a fairly big farm-raised fish, but this fish is actually farmed specifically to come this size every time. So you could order 10 of these fish, they're all going to look exactly the same. So we'll talk about buying fish. Not a lot of people see fish like this. A lot of people think that fish is this little fillet they buy in the frozen section or wherever, even in the fresh part. And I think it's very important, if you're going to consciously eat anything, that you know where it's coming from, how it got to your plate. It's very important. Not a lot of people think about their food like that. And I think if you really knew what you were eating, you would have a lot more respect for it, and that would then make you a better cook if you decided to go on this profession, or even just at your house. So when you're looking at fish and you're looking at it whole, there's a couple things you want to look at right when you're going there. First, you want to smell it. I mean, that's the first thing you're gonna smell is the fish. If the fish smells like seaweed, then it's probably not good. They say it's supposed to have no smell or smell like cucumbers. I don't really buy into the whole cucumber thing, but no smell generally is where you want to be, to very little smell. They have a natural mechanism in their body that secretes oil into their skin. So slimy is normal, right? Slimy is fine. A little bit of slime. But if you put your hand on it and you pick it up and strings come off of slime, like that's bad. You don't want that. So that's the second thing you want to look for. Touch the fish. Does it feel slimy, or is it just normally slimy? Does that make sense? It's a predatory thing. So they get slimy so that people like ourselves can't go in and just pick them up out of the water. That slime helps them from not being eaten, even though we figured out ways around that. Next thing you want to look at are the eyes. I don't know, you probably can't see them from where you're sitting, but the eyes should be very black. If they're white or not clear and black, don't buy it. The cloudier the eye, the older the fish is. That's generally the first thing to go in a fish, is the eyes will get very cloudy a couple days out of the water. The next thing you want to do is the texture of it. So you want to touch it. It should bounce back to its original shape. If you touch it and your finger goes into the flesh or stays indented, that means that it's rotting from the inside out, and that would be not good. That would be like the final thing you want to look at, and definitely avoid any fish that is mealy or your finger will go into it and actually leave an indent. The fishing industry has done all of us a very nice thing by gutting most commercial fish at sea. So you don't have to deal with this whole, has anybody ever gone fishing? What's the worst part about fishing? Gutting the fish. So what they do in the ocean when they're harvesting these things, they gut them right then and there. They stick a knife right in their throat, and they go all the way back down here and remove all the kidneys, the livers, anything that's in there. Plus that stuff is not very good for the meat, because if the stomach has acid to help it digest. If the stomach busts in the transportation of this fish, all that acid is getting on the meat, and then by the time it gets to where it's supposed to be, it's rotted. So the fishing industry, most places, will gut the fish right there in the ocean. A little bit of the anatomy of the fish. You've got pectoral fins, which is kind of like their arms that kind of steers them in which direction they want to go. You got dorsal fin. I'm not really sure why salmon have this little flappy dorsal fin down here, but all the salmon breeds have this little like useless fin down here. And then you got the tail fin, which really is what propels the fish going forward. So this shakes, that steers it. You want to have a basic idea of the anatomy of the fish, the basic idea of the shape, where the bones are, so you know where to put your knife, because you can't see what's going on in there. So a little bit of research ahead of time of reading how to fillet fish will help. But these fish are good because you can just do a straight cut on salmon. They have really soft bones. They're bigger fish like tuna or whatever that you actually have to go around bones. This you can just do a straight cut, and I'll explain what that is in a second. And if you're, depending on what side you are, you want to kind of always have the head on your working hand. So I'm a righty, so the head's always going to be on my right side. Because they are naturally somewhat slimy, you always want to have paper towels around and just keep drying it. The more you dry it, the more that oil is going to come to the surface. So it's never going to be completely dry. But it's dangerous to be working with such a sharp knife and have something slimy. So you got to kind of find a medium of drying it off and keeping your hand from sliding all over the place. Fillet of salmon. This is a little bit more like what you're used to seeing. These bones have to come out. No one wants to really eat them. If you feel where the ribs would be on this animal with your finger, you can feel that there are tiny little bones here. So what you're going to do is you're going to take these needle nose pliers, you're going to see these bones with your thumb, you're going to feel them. There's about 24 per side, and these are literally their rib bones. And you're going to grab it, and you're going to pull it out. So that's what the bones are. But you have to pull them out. Anything you buy in the restaurant business, you pay by the pound. So you paid for this. This is actual money out of your pocket in order to create money for your restaurant or your business, whatever that is. So the dilemma comes, well, this is all bones and it's not very attractive looking, so what am I going to do with this? There is a ton of meat on here. And basically, this fish cost me $2.75 a pound, a 10-pound fish, so this is a $25 fish. This is what it cost me to buy this retail. So if I were to take a spoon and come at this and say, well, look at all this meat that's essentially there, but it's ridden with bones, you can scrape this soft meat off with a spoon, right? And this applies to any fish. So now you've got this like almost burger meat texture. And if you were to scrape this whole fish down, both sides of it, you'd get 5, 6, 7, 8 portions of this mincemeat, whatever you want to do with it from there. Make it into meatballs if you wanted to. You could just sell it. That's the key. There's money here to be had. So I can pretty much pay for this fish with this stuff. And then everything I get out of here just is money in the bank. Because you got to pay your cooks, you got to pay your chef, you got to pay your busboys and your servers. So you can just strictly pay for the food here, and then everything else you get here pays for your cooks, your chefs, and whatever. And then by the time you get to that last little piece, that finally goes in your pocket, realistically. Fish is filled with these things called omega-3 fatty acids. Now these are essential fatty acids that our body needs to develop. People who have poor eyesight have shown, it's proven, that omega-3s will help you with your eyesight in development stages of life like you guys are growing up. It'll help you with brain development, learning. So the easiest way to get these essential fatty acids that you need is consuming fish. There's a statistic that I was just reading the other day. 1 6-ounce piece of fish, which is basically a normal sized piece of fish, 6 ounces, will lower, 1 6-ounce piece of fish a week will lower your chance of heart disease by 33%, which is staggering. If you really think about that, you divide the entire percentage of that you might get heart disease in your life, and you knock 1/3 of that right off just by eating 1 piece of fish a week. There's this stuff right here, this silver skin, that basically lines the inside of the animal and protects its flesh from sitting on its organs. So it's not very desirable to eat, so you got to get rid of that. Now when you're butchering fish, it's such a tender meat that you don't want to just start sawing at it like you would a steak, back and forth in slow movements. And this goes for all meat that you're butchering. You want to do long strokes. You want to look at this, visualize where you want to be, and then do long strokes to get there. So don't saw at it. So I'm visualizing where my knife has to be. I'm definitely not going to come at it this way. I'm going to come at it this way. I start way at the end, and I do one continuous long stroke. And that's just going to make the fish not look like you chewed on it while you were cutting it. Now again, this is usable money. This cost me $1.50, right? It probably weighs almost a pound. So this is money, but it's ridden with bones and silver skin. So what do? There? You go back to your spoon technique and you scrape that off and you add it to your salmon burger meat. You cut this little flap, okay? This is like your, this is your handle, okay? So you cut this little flap off. You bring the knife down to the skin, you turn it towards the head, and you use this flap and you hold it. Now some people just leave their knife still and shake the flap back and forth. Some people saw with their knife, it doesn't matter. I saw with the knife, but I've seen people who just do this, which is fine too. I think you have a little bit more control if you actually use the knife to cut rather than using the skin. And you come right through, and then you've got skin off, right? So this is also money. I paid another $1.50 for this. So what do you do with this? I had a salad on the menu that I took this, you scrape off all this meat, you salt it, you bake it in a really hot oven for like an hour, and it comes out like a chip, like crispy, and people can actually bite it and eat it. It tastes delicious, nice and salty. It tastes just like a potato chip. You wouldn't even know the difference if somebody told you it was salmon. The oil that you use is important. You want a high temp oil, something that won't burn. Every oil has a different temperature. Olive oil is in the middle range. Butter would be on the low range of that. Butter will burn at a really low temperature. Canola oil or vegetable oil would be on a much higher smoking point. So I'm using olive oil today, and you can see what I mean by the smoking point. You literally want to get it up to this point. Now, oil will combust. Oil will literally go from that to fire at a certain temperature. So you do have to be slightly careful, but you want to get the oil up to this stage. You want to make sure your fish is really dry, or whatever you're sticking in hot oil is really dry, because you don't want to put wet in hot oil. It's not good. You want to season it right before you're going in the pan, because if you season it too early, the salt will draw moisture to the surface, and then you're putting water back in a hot pan. Then you want to take the fish and put it in the oil facing away from you, so you don't burn yourself. That's kind of a lesson that you teach yourself the first time you burn yourself, really. The oil is very, you see it in the thing, it's very kind of liquidy looking. When it gets hot, it's kind of just dancing all over the pan, so you want to find it with the fish and make sure that it's underneath the fish before you completely drop it. You don't want to put it on a dry spot. So this fish has been sitting. It's ready to go. And I'm just going to kind of flake it for you guys. And you can stir it right into your tacos, or make your own tacos when you come up, and use this as the meat.
Why did you decide to participate in today's event?
I wanted to promote fish to the students so that we can have it on the menu because, as Chef Marco mentioned, it's one of the healthier foods out there.
Why did you decide to participate in this event?
I think it's important to educate younger people that fish is an important thing to eat. If I can get all of you guys eating fish and you're older, you'll be eating more fish. Your kids will be eating fish. You start at a young age, you kind of influence the kids to eat it. Then their kids are going to eat it. You're going to eat it as an adult.
Hi, I hope you enjoyed this episode of 201 Today. We'll see you next time, and remember, every day is a great day to be a Mustang.